Welcome to Creative Pages with Catherine. I'm Catherine. It's time to continue part 2 of my journey or story sticks. I have 4 more planned for you in this part 2 video. I introduced it in the Latina Next Door's Look for Less challenge. And I wanted to do 5 of these total because things look better on the wall when they're an odd numbers. It just, I don't know, seems to flow a little bit better. So I wanted to give you some ideas of some other ones that I had planned, and we're just going to go ahead and go for it. We will continue working with the Leave Nothing Behind texture pack pages and our Leave Nothing Behind designer collection as well. But primarily the texture pack is what I'm focusing on in these videos because I just thought that the textures that they had really highlight and show the background of the story, and then you can tell your story that way. It's really fun. So with this next stick, I have my edges already sanded. I've kind of cut more of an angle using my wire cutters. I'm going to set that aside so we can finish cutting our pages. I have gone ahead and I've done 3 1/4 inch strips of these 3 designer pages. I thought went nicely together. And now I'm going to pull out my trimmer and do the rest of the cutting. And I really wanted this one is kind of going to take place of the blue one that I did in the first story stick. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one. I'm going to do a 2 inch, a 4 inch, and a 1.5 inch. So let's just start at the 1.5 inch strip here. And then a 2 inch. And now a 4 inch piece. And for the other sticks I'm going to be doing today, I will go ahead and have everything pre-cut and ready to go, but I wanted to give you all an idea of what sizes I'm cutting these to, just so that way if you decide you want to do some of these, you'll have an idea of what will fit on these 5-gallon paint sticks. I am subbing this one for the terracotta. So that one we did a 2 inch piece. And a 3 inch piece. And this one was a scrap, which is why it looks a little bit shorter. I think I cut something a little bit off, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and flip around my paper, get this lined up a little bit neater. So there's my 3 inch piece there by 3 1/4. And we also need a 2.5 inch piece from this as well. So here's 2.5 from my dark green, and that just left us with a little tiny piece left on my strip that's about 1/4 inch. And you never know, I might work that in down the stick somewhere. Look how cute the other side of the paper is. We may work that in somewhere. And finally, I have this really pretty, just variety colored page that reminded me of Old Faithful in Yellowstone. Hopefully I got the park right, but it reminded me of Old Faithful, and so this story stick is kind of going to tell the story of our visit there. So it's inspired by this actual piece of paper. Let's see, what do I need? 1.5 inches. And then we also need a 1/2 inch. So remember, when using our trimmer, the 1/2 inch starts the grid lines on either side, so you can use either side of your trimmer when cutting that. And I think that's it for our cutting. So this is going to be my highlight, even though it's the inspiration for my story stick. I didn't want to, I like how these two more greens go together. And let's see. Yep, that looks like that's it for our cutting for now. If I need to pull the trimmer back out later, I will. So I'm going to set these aside on my pile. The last story stick I'm doing is actually going to be from the 3 1/4 inch scraps that I've got already to use. Now, I also want to show you, I've pulled out my cutting mat and I've set aside some pieces here. I had this mat pulled out because I really liked how the starry sky of this mat worked with these pages. And then I remembered that we had this aqua color, but the backside of it has the starry night. So I used a little piece of designer paper from this one instead of cutting the mat. And I cut 1 1/4 inch from that starry scrap. And then I also punched my circle chain border maker that I showed you in the part 1 video as well. I've kept aside some of my scraps just in case we decide to pull those in. I pulled out a Starry Night embossed hexagon that I punched, well, for the first video, but I didn't actually use it. And this also is the Starry Night paper as well, the shimmer. And then I also had cut an extra circle using our medium circle from our custom cutting system. I had used the green blade for this one, but I wanted it a little bit smaller because I do want to put my hexagon on the circle. So this is with the blue blade with the same medium circle. And I just thought that the blue and the green looked really nicely with the other pages. And we'll see how it goes, if I actually wind up using those or not, or if I pull in this piece or something else. We will find out. So let me grab my box because I really don't like getting glue on my table because I use it for so much paper crafting and mostly with the tape runners. So here we go. Let's get this going here. Okay. So I have my Arlene's Tacky Glue again. I have I have both of my pairs of Creative Memory scissors ready to go, and I'll set those aside for now. I have an X-Acto knife just in case I'd wanted to do some other trimming, and I did use the wire cutters again to take out this other angle on our stick. And finally, I have my brush that spreads my glue nicely, this little silicone brush that I used also in part 1 of the video. It just made life easy and went smoothly with the project. Okay, so I have my stick and my papers ready to go. Let me make sure I have everything going. It's going to wrap around this way, so let me go ahead and put out my papers kind of where I want them on the stick here. Definitely want to highlight that gorgeous blue. Here's a little more of the green, can go at the top. And I guess I do need to pull this one at the top. Okay, so at the top and the bottom is going to be our pine needles on the wood, and then we'll work it down. So I'm going to kind of put my pieces here, kind of going across. I've turned this one over, and I'm going to go ahead and get my glue going with my brush. This thing works really well. I'm actually very happy with my $3 purchase here. And then we're just going to wrap this around. We're just going to wrap this around the top of our stick here. and then I'll take my scissors at the end and cut it to get the angle. So I'm going to go ahead and get these done in the order on here, and we'll maybe speed it up a little so that way y'all don't have to watch me spread glue. Probably not the most exciting thing to be watching, but this way at least you can see the technique that I edited out of the first part. Most of you probably noticed in the speed up part of the video that I did drop one on the edge of this one. It's not a problem. I wrapped it around the back. I really wasn't too worried about it. If it had fallen in the middle, I just would have recut that piece. That's one nice thing about working with paper, is it's pretty forgiving. The other thing I did was I forgot that I had this piece I was going to wrap around, and I thought I would work it in, and of course still dealing with getting over being sick, so I forgot that. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I did the last time. I'm going to cut another inch of the gemstone-y looking piece, and I'm going to go ahead and put that onto the bottom. So let me grab out my trimmer and move my box so I can glue that down in just a moment here. Okay, so here we go. Just 1 inch is all we should need. In fact, I'm going to double check it because just in case my sticks weren't quite as even. I'm actually going to do 1.25 inches because it looks like on this one we've got that little bit of extra, and I think I started my top one a little bit higher and I should have made it a little more flush. But again, that's also where I can just make it up in the paper cutting at the end here. Scoot this back in, turn this over, grab my glue, and here we go. Super easy to fix, no big deal. Put my cap back on my glue so it doesn't dry out before I have to do my next stick here. And there we go. Okay. All right. So this one definitely does tell a completely different story than my first stick. And like I said, I'm very glad it reminds me of the geysers and some of the pine trees over in Yellowstone. Let me move my box back out of the way. I'm going to grab out my scissors, and I'm going to use my microchip scissors since I have a little bit of glue on the ends of these that's still probably drying a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take it one angle first and then the other, and then I will go ahead and just make it a little bit neater here. There we go. All right. So there's our bottom or our top, whichever. I guess it really doesn't matter because it's with the stick you can go either direction, and now my glue is still a little tacky, but I think it's okay, and we're going to go ahead and still cut through it. That's why I use these scissors, is because they have this special coating that nothing sticks to it really. And there we go. So these turned out a little bit smoother than our first one, but that's okay. And let me get the scrap trash out of the way here. Just give my scissors a quick wipe since that glue was still a little wet. No problems there. Nothing sticking to them. I think it actually got more stuck to my paper and fingers as usual. All right, let me pull back in my punching mat. And now I am going to figure out where I want to put my little starry piece first. I need to adhere my circle chain to it first. I just thought this added some extra interest and drew the eye to the Starry Night because, of course, when we went there, we were camping and we got to see the gorgeous stars in that part of the country. So I'm going to grab my parchment board. If you haven't seen my parchment board before, it's a sturdy piece of cardboard. And I use electrical tape to hold on the parchment because it's one of the few things that do stick to parchment. So we're just going to run this along my circle chain here. I'm going to go ahead and stick this on. And just go ahead and I think this almost looks good in between these two here rather than, yep, I think I like it between the green and the brown part there. I'm going to see what glue is left on my brush here and see if I can get enough off to stick this on without actually having to add on more glue. Yep, just enough. So here we go. This is going to wrap around through here. And nope, maybe not. Let me get my tape runner. Just add a little bit of extra staying power here. There we go, because we're sticking the paper to the paper. I think with the wood part, it made sense to use the glue, but now that we're just putting paper on paper, we can get out our tape runners. Okay, so let's go ahead and adhere our hexagon to our circle here. And I think this might actually go up here, or should we put them separate? No, I like them together. Okay, so we're going to put these together using our regular tape runner. This was the light green mat that had kind of the topography look to it. And again, I cut it with our medium circle from our custom cutting system and our blue blade this time. And I think I like this one at the top here, so I'm going to go ahead and add my tape runner to that, and we'll put it up here. Just to give it a little more punch, and then I don't know if I kind of like the look of the back side of the green sheet has these little paw prints and things, and that's definitely, we did see a lot of wildlife when we went, and so I think I'm actually going to go ahead and use this little scrap that we got when we were cutting, because it was that little 1/4 of an inch, and I think I'm going to run it through the middle of this larger piece here. Just again with my repositionable tape on my parchment board. And I think I'm going to offset it. I don't want it going exactly through the middle. Trying to make sure it's straight here, just to add another storyline to our stick. And I think that's it. This is our story of our time in Yellowstone. Just some beautiful jewel tones that we saw, the little topography showing that we saw some unique landscapes, our starry sky, pine needles, our little animal tracks, and our rest of our story. On to the next one. For this next story stick, I've already placed all my papers that I've cut using the cutting guide that I showed for the first stick. I have one of my next sticks, I left it cut at the angles this time. And I've gone ahead and placed my papers. I've used this ivy page that has this kind of almost foresty scene on the back. I've used the canyon looking page that has just a regular kind of print on the back. And I've used this almost stone bark or cork look that has pine needles on the back of it. And I've gone ahead and placed them how I want to place them on the stick. I've also taken my boot print punch and I've punched out on the opposite side of my ivy page here. So that way it can kind of be going across and showing the boot print, showing that we went camping. This one I'm reminiscing on the Olympics out in the Pacific Northwest. There were a lot of large pine trees, but in the Olympic National Forest, you actually can find some desert and you can find some rainforest. And it's really unique area of our country. And I just thought that this kind of covered a lot of the different perspectives from the Olympics. So that's what this story stick is going to be about for me. I'm going to go ahead and get all my pages glued on. And then on this one, we're going to use a few of the stickers to highlight some of the pine aspects of the area. So I will show you those in just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get my first piece going, and then I'll go ahead and speed things up for y'all. And when I was cutting my pieces for this one, I did cut the extra inch piece already ahead of time. So that way, hopefully, I will have my entire stick covered and not have to go back and grab my trimmer again. Okay. So here I am wrapping my last sheet around. I did wind up with a little bit extra off the bottom, probably because I'd done my extra inch at the top, but I'm okay with that. It's fine. It looks great. I will move my box and grab my scissors and we'll trim some of this out. Okay. Here we go. This one was at an angle up here. Trying to make sure I go the direction I need to go here. Oops. Well, just take that off and then go this way. Come around and get the rest of it. There we go. That's the top of our stick. And this is the bottom. Make sure I get the end here. Get the excess and then I'll come around again, just like I did on the other side. Whoops. All right. Work with me here. There we go. That time I did get a little bit of glue on my scissors, but it's just rubbing right off, no problems at all. And you'll see when I go to do the next stick, they will cut just as nicely as they did this time. Clear out some of my scraps real quick here, and now I'm going to grab my parchment board again. And let me pull out my boot print that I had punched out, and I'm not sure if I want it on the top part or the bottom, but trying it out in different spots. And I think I like it over this upper canyon part. And I want to try to show an entire boot print going across the stick. So let me grab out my repositionable tape. Getting that on there and going ahead and lining it up across this canyon point of my... Here we go, going ahead and getting it wrapped around. And I did it a little bit off center again, kind of like how I did the small strip on the other story stick. Checking the back side. And since we're sticking paper to paper, it was fine to use the repositionable tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and set aside my parchment board, and I'm going to pull out the Leave Nothing Behind stickers because I spotted this pine border sticker, and I want to wrap it around my stick in a couple of points here. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and place it in between these two sheets here, kind of covering the seam a little bit, grabbing out my micro tip scissors. I'm going to get just in between the 2 points on the sticker and wrapping it around. And now I'm looking at where I want to add it in another point of the stick. Originally I was thinking I might just do it once, but I think I like the idea of adding it a second time. So we're going to go ahead and put it around the top as well, giving it another snip with the scissors and wrapping it around. And I know I spotted a couple of pine cones on these stickers, so I'm just going to go ahead and place these at a couple of different points on the stick because I do just associate this national park with the pine trees. And so of course pine trees have pine cones, and so here we go. I'm going to add a third one in the middle of the stick here. And I also think I spied a little pine branch, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn that one into a little bit of a sticker cluster. But I need to grab my multi-purpose tool to pick up the end of that little pine cone sticker because otherwise I could damage it. And by using my multi-purpose tool, it helps me just to lift it that little bit so I can get my little branch under my pine cone and create a little cluster there. And it's going off the stick just a touch, but I'm okay with that. And there we go. We have our stickers in different points along the stick, and I think it turned out great. On to the next one. I've now put together the papers for my third story stick, and I've taken some of our scraps that I've used from other projects with the Leave Nothing Behind papers and from what we've done with the other sticks. This one is the pine needle that had the kind of cork look on the back, or a tree section. This one is a nice cute camping one, and this one was the back side of our pine needle that was on the wood, but this one has more of leaves on the ground. And so I've gone ahead and I've done my cutting based on the guide I had at the beginning of the video. And now I'm getting ready to stick these on. I think this one tells a story more of when my husband and I used to go camping a little bit more in a tent when we were younger. And we would go either to the Great Smoky Mountains or sometimes we go up to Luna Lake in Wisconsin. And we would just backpack and take out the tent, and it was always quiet and peaceful and very enjoyable. So I'm going to go ahead and get these stuck on, and then I will speed it up while I'm doing my gluing again, and I will come back and talk with you a little bit more. Here's my stick with all my papers on it. I've gone ahead and moved my box, and I'm going to grab my scissors so we can trim off the ends. Apparently I'm dropping my scissors at the same time here. I went ahead and grabbed the piece of chevron arrows I had used on my first stick, and I think we're going to wrap these around going just right to left or left to right. I'm not exactly sure yet, and then I'm going to pull this tent sticker off from the Leave Nothing Behind stickers because I love that it repeats this tent as well. And we might do a acorn or a lantern or a leaf. We'll see what strikes me once we get rolling with this, but let me go ahead and trim the top and the bottom first. All right, so this stick was one of our angular sticks again. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the back side here and work my way around with my scissor, and then just retrim out whatever else needs trimming. There we go. And again on this other end, I've got a lot of extra paper this time somehow, but that's okay. We'll just go ahead and trim it off again also. Whoops. There we go. All right. So we have our ends trimmed out at the angle following our paint stick, becoming our story or journey stick here. Let's go ahead and move in the, ooh, I almost like the darker arrows on this paper, because we used this side up on my other stick, but I like the idea of wrapping around this darker because it repeats some of the colors found in our leaf page a little bit more. And I wonder, I almost like it wrapping, showing the actual, because I have some of that leaf paper leaves on the kind of the dead leaves or dying leaves on the ground down here. That was my 1/2 inch piece, and I think I'm going to wrap this arrow through here, going around my stick. And let me grab my repositionable tape here. I'm trying to make my life as easy as possible, and I guess it really doesn't matter which direction it goes, just so long as it goes on. And I kind of wanted the larger arrow to show through, so I did fussy cut it a little bit on my trimmer, but I did trim it to the 3 1/4 inches, so I knew it would wrap around my stick nicely and not quite touch on the back side. So there we go. That's those arrows, the chevron arrow, Border Maker cartridge that we cut. And now I'm going to grab this little green tent. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my foam squares. I haven't used any foam squares yet this video, but there's one that's going to go on the tent. I just think it needs one. And then maybe we can pop our tent up here above our little white paper here and repeat kind of that little tent that we see down here in our outhouse. And we've got our tent. And so here we are with the thoughts of camping. This one has a little bit of more of this lighter green that repeats. So I'm going to go ahead and put this sticker on here. And maybe we'll grab a couple of just the little acorns for the top here and the bottom of our stick on this page here. All right, there we go. So reminiscent of so many days of camping, just with some of the wood tones and the greens and the foliage. There's another story stick done. And finally, we have my last one. For me, like to think I saved the best for last. But let me grab all my pages and I will talk to you about this one in just a moment. All right, so for the final story stick, I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I am from Miami, Florida originally, and I really wanted to do a story stick representing my home a little bit, or my home to me anyways. And growing up, we would go to Matheson Hammock and we go to Key Biscayne, and I just remembered, you know, the colors of the water, and this part of our, I don't know, I think it was supposed to be like a gemstone page from the Leave Nothing Behind. It had this other part to it. Reminded me of the color of the water in Florida. And then I also pulled some of the sheets from our Seaside collection because, of course, that's where they have the sand page and the water page. This is a double-sided. It has a light and a darker side to it, and so I cut a lot of strips from that one to mix in, match in, along with this extra just kind of pop of vibrant color. So when the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, was just bright and sunny and you got some vibrancy, or when the sun was setting you got some darker, or raining and you got some lighter colors, and it just spoke to me. So I wanted to do my final story stick just representing the ocean and the beach and my home a little bit. So we'll get these glued down and I will talk with you again in a moment. For my last strip here, it looks like I might have cut down this last strip a little bit more. So I'm actually going to layer my blue water a little bit over the sandy beach here. Here we go. Just so that way I have enough leverage to cut off and still have this blue stay on here. And so let me set this box aside again. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start on the back side here at the top, and I want to find those V's that I cut out because, like I said, I think it reminds me of the sandy beach and the ocean waves kind of being a little bit rougher than some of the camping trips and some of the just the regular, I guess we have the Rocky Mountains and what have you, but I still want this one to be just a little bit more kind of distressed, I guess would be the better way to say it, maybe. I think I just cut a little bit of the wood too with my scissors here, but I'm okay with that too. Here we go, that's going in, and I did sand it as well, so hopefully we won't get any splinters. So don't forget to use your sandpaper at the top and the bottom once you rough out your edges on your story sticks here. Well, that's along the lines of what I did. There we go. And now let's try this other end a little bit. Oops. Okay, let me try the back because I can't exactly see where I'm going here with this. Hopefully I'm on camera well enough for y'all. All right, let's get this here. And it's okay to rip it a little bit too if you want, because we're still going to find the indentures we did with the pliers or the wire cutting tool here. Oops, I got a little bit of my wood is kind of splintering up a little bit, so I'm going to push that down just a little bit. Here we go. And here we go. Let me go ahead and kind of rough this one up a little bit too, just taking my scissors and running through it a little bit. Creative Memories did have a tool at one point that did do something similar to this, I think, but I think you probably needed to do it to the paper before you cut it. There we go. Okay. So let's get rid of some of these scraps. Just wipe my scissors off. And here we go. Oops, I did get some of the wood there. Okay, let's see. Do we want that end up or do we want the darker end up? I think the darker end on the top looks a little bit nicer to me just looking at it. And all those times that we were on the beach, we would watch the sailboats going along. So I pulled one of our Seaside layered embellishments, and I'm going to add a foam square to this one as well. This is just one of our large foam squares. And let me see, I think I'm going to put 2 of those back here. All right. We'll just go ahead and put those corner to corner. Here we go. And I think I'm going to put this over the ocean part. We also would watch the airplanes sometimes go by as well, but we don't have an airplane embellishment that I know of, at least not in any of the packs I have currently. The other thing I did was I have the Spiky Evergreen chain border maker cartridge, and this one isn't currently on our website, unfortunately. I usually try not to show product that isn't available currently, but this just reminded me so much of coral that I had to use it because, you know, when you're at the beaches, and especially at Key Biscayne where we would go, there was always that bit of coral that would be off to the side near the lighthouse. And so I really wanted to incorporate the coral effect, and this just reminded me so much of it. And just layering it makes it just look like that rocky, spiky coral. I'm going to go ahead and stick these on. Grabbing my parchment board again. And I'm just going to go ahead and layer it and angle it. And unfortunately, Hurricane Andrew wiped out so much of the coral reefs by the Keys, but I think they're finally slowly starting to recover. But that's one of the things that just reminds me of home, is the coral reef and all the different types of coral that you can see there. And I went ahead and punched it out of our white shimmer paper, so to give that just really almost underwater effect to it as well. And finally, in the Seaside Embellishments, we have these pearl enameled pieces, and I'm going to add a few of these as well. I think it's just another thing to mimic a seashell, or just to add that extra effect to our story stick here. It just is another piece of our Miami story. This pearled look, you know, it makes you think of clams maybe in the ocean a bit. And it just reminds me of home. Oops, I've got some glue stuck to my nails. Let me get rid of that. And so I'm going to put 3 along the bottom, and I think I'm going to put 3 of the larger ones also along the top up here between the kind of the oceany paper and the sandy looking paper. There we go. And these are self-sticking, so that makes it convenient. So let me grab out my other sticks and we'll put them all together. This was my last one here. Here they are, my finished story sticks. And I hope you all enjoyed hearing my stories about the Grand Canyon and the Smoky Mountains, my hometown of Miami, and hearing about some of our little camping trips. Each one had its own story to tell. We have unique tops and bottoms to them. And it just turned out to be a really fun project. I appreciate you all taking this journey with me. Please subscribe. You never know what I might be coming up with next. Until next time.